evening, good night, and good morning, everyone. This is update for June 3, 2022, day 100 of the war, end of the date update. So today we're going to be relatively short and just going to go straight to walk through the front line. And for those who are following what's going on with our international volunteers, so the portion of them who are organized within this international volunteers brigade now in Severodonetsk. But we'll talk about that once we get to that area. So let's start from the very north, and we're gonna do in a clockwise fashion. So again, there is artillery shelling along the border, different villages, different locations from time to time, but basically the situation is more or less the same. Now let's look what's going on near Kharkiv. So here, in very short, the situation is the following: there is this buffer, right, that Russian military wants to keep. Ukrainian side tries to push them out to reach the state border, and there is basically this kind of like pull and push kind of fight that's going on, low intensity, where the Russian troops trying to a little bit push Ukrainian troops back. Ukrainian troops counterattack, push Russian troops back to the Russian border, to the Russian territory. So it's basically there is no meaningful change here. That's the whole point of the situation here, and it's low intensity. Neither side is committing, major resources in the fighting here. Now let's actually look at our favorite Donbass salient, as we always do, and then we're going to look at the Severodonetsk salient, which is a tip of the Donbass iceberg, let's put it this way. Let's first start with the Izyum bridgehead. So situation here is more or less the same. However, this is a high level overview, where we show Russian mechanized brigade that are main workhorses here at this point. These units suffered pretty heavy losses, and they essentially just consolidated battle groups. So let's actually look at the situation here. So Russian side is actually got pretty active today here, and they were attacking in their typical major areas. One would direction along this road direction toward Barvinkove, then this area near Dovhenke, and then from village Pasika towards south. So the situation here is getting a little bit more sort of more intense, but so far Ukrainian troops managed to hold the line. Russian troops continuing attacking a tiny Ukrainian bridgehead on the eastern side here around town Svyatohirsk. There's still fighting going on. Obviously we cannot predict for sure when it's gonna, when Ukrainian troops are gonna withdraw, but eventually that's probably what's gonna happen here. It's just a question of time. Now let's look at the situation around Severodonetsk, as we call it, Severodonetsk salient, and this also means Popasna. So northern part is more or less stable. There is nothing new here. However, there are actually interesting developments here in Severodonetsk. So as we mentioned before, we thought that Ukrainian troops will sort of gradually withdraw and eventually abandon Severodonetsk. However, this is not happening, and Ukrainian command decided to commit fighters from International Volunteers Brigade, not entire brigade, obviously. This is probably like 200-300 soldiers from that brigade went there. So they decided to commit them there, and apparently the idea is to keep this bridgehead as sort of distraction for the Russian troops, and so to kind of keep them kind of busy in this area and preoccupied and not being able to move the troops freely. And the reason what we think why it's possible, and let's actually look at situation Severodonetsk. This is sort of initial situation when Russian troops had very little. Then they conquered this, and then they finally conquered all of the town. And essentially, fighting is going on at this Azot nitrogen fertilizer plant. So the reason we think it's possible, because now, as we discussed, the western bank of the river is very high. Well, very high, we would say 120 to 150 meters higher relative to the eastern side, right? So if you have artillery here, you can easily support your troops fighting here, and it's not it's not civilian. There are no civilians at the factory, so you can basically fire at will and sort of fight as much as you can. And also, as we mentioned a long time ago, that factory is in a way kind of perfect place to for defense, and especially if the factories are getting damaged by the artillery fire, there is all of the rubble, all of the destruction that creates even better defensive positions basically over time. So in a way, it's probably an attempt of Ukrainian side to kind of drain sort of power and resources of the Russian side in terms of futile attacks that lead to extremely high level of casualties, and at the same time they can support the troops with artillery fire, and not to mention they can bring ammunition and medical supplies and everything to this factory. As we discussed, this bridge is still functioning. It's semi-destroyed, but nevertheless, we're pretty sure that even if it's destroyed, it's a small river. You can easily use other means to deliver to deliver supplies to the troops. So this is quite a sort of different attitude, quite a bit of change from Ukrainian high command in terms of the plans regarding this bridgehead, because we cannot even say it's Severodonetsk. It's really just really bridgehead near Severodonetsk, because as you can see, Ukrainian troops don't control Severodonetsk anymore. So we'll see what, but generally it's probably right sort of strategic move. It's probably will cost lives to the soldiers on this bridgehead, because they will be sort of the target for all Russian attacks or Russian artillery and everything. So it's not going to be easy, but as a strategic move, it's probably right move here, because it will keep Russian side. They will not be free to kind of move the troops to other locations, and they will have to kind of keep the troops here to make sure that Ukrainian side does not break out from this bridgehead, which, based on some information, these groups try to do small kind of counterattacks and even captured some areas. Unfortunately, there's no way to know exactly where their front line lies here exactly. So we just know, just sort of call it qualitatively, not quantitatively, where what's going on there. Okay, let's now move. Let's look at the situation near Popasna. With no changes, same stable situation here after Ukrainian territorial losses yesterday. Just as a reminder, this how it looked on actually we're gonna show June 1st. This is June 2nd. Yesterday, when Russian troops attacked, they captured most of the Kamyshovaha, and then they captured this village Pilepchatine and moved forward to the next Ukrainian defensive position. No really sort of meaningful change, except this is situation right now as of today has no changes essentially. So what and actually let's probably go back here, because I forgot to mention it yesterday. What this means, it's making it this sort of capture of Kamyshovaha by Russian troops makes it a little bit more possible Russian attempt to encircle at least these troops. It's kind of a very interesting kind of dynamic, right? So first they wanted to cut off the whole Donbass salient. Then they decided to attack around to cut off this Severodonetsk salient, and now they trying to cut off this, call it Zolote salient, right? So it's always kind of like the scope of the task is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which again reflects their capabilities, right? That Russian troops right now are exhausted, right? And not to mention, the Ukrainian troops are super exhausted as well. And we mentioned this many times. This is fight of the will at this point on both sides. This is whose will is stronger, essentially, because both sides are super exhausted and neither side has immediate sort of new fuel to the fire, right? Russian side does not have can sort of, for political reason, cannot do mobilization right now or does not want to do that, and Ukrainian side is lacking weapons. They have human resources, but they lack weapons to success, to turn those resources into the fighters, into the soldiers. So that move makes it a little bit more possible, the encirclement here. It's still, far away, and we doubt that Ukrainian command will allow encirclement to happen. But nevertheless, situation here obviously not very sort of concerning. Let's put it this way. Then another concerning area is what Russian command decided to do. They obviously don't want to attack across the river, because this western bank is very much higher. So what they're trying to do, they're trying to go along their basically from here towards north, kind of like from the flanks in a way. So that's why this is also important area, this village Ustenivka, and they are basically approaching this village Mirna Dolina. So this is also important defensive position for Ukrainian troops, because this is another area of pressure where Russian troops would like to get, to attack from the flank and essentially kind of push Ukrainian troops out of here. The only sort of saving grace and what makes it easier for Ukrainian defenders that here only Forest Brigade from a Second Army Corps operates here, which is pretty weak, low quality unit. So that's what really probably allows to hold the front line here more or less well. So now let's go back. Let's look what's going on sort of from the kind of like at this Popasna salient, from a little bit like even southern part of it. So again, as you can see, Russian troops managed to build quite a bit of the salient here, because the front line, just as a reminder for those who just joining, used to be kind of like there was actually Ukrainian salient here, a small one, and kind of like more or less straight. Well, actually they managed to get into Popasna. So, but initially it was more or less like this. So this is territorial gains. They obviously not huge. Obviously for the amount of fighting, for the time of fighting, was essentially 2 months of intense fighting. So, but nevertheless, then again, as we mentioned, First Army Corps, they attacking from here in attempt to help Russian troops on this side, but so far they were not successful. So this is situation here around Popasna. Let's move now a little bit more south and let's look what's going on straight west of Donetsk. Here, Russian troops again trying to attack from this salient, and then let's actually have a closer look. So this is again, the whole idea is attacking from this salient towards north, towards west or northwest, or even try to do a little bit more like southwest, and then like attack from this area, from the area of the Donetsk International Airport, which is destroyed by now. But so the point is to attack towards kind of like in northwestern direction, and essentially create situation when Ukrainian troops has to have to withdraw or be encircled. But this is the plan. But so far, its execution is definitely not there. Let's now look a little bit at Zaporizhia front line. There was specifically the eastern section, as we always do. That's the sort of main focus because Russian troops managed to build the wedge here when they were trying to create southern pincer to cut off Donbass salient. So the situation here more or less stable. The only place there was attack towards village Poltavka from Stepove here. That's sort of kind of like, it's not like the importance that attack by itself, but it's sort of sign of sort of that Russian troops start to move, start to be more aggressive, or call it aggressive. We'll watch if this is something new or this was just a local attack. It's unclear if this is basically part of something bigger or this is just like a local attack. And obviously, it makes sense, this attack, because if Russian troops capture this village Poltavka, then essentially this stronghold in Malinivka is going to be in very bad position and probably will be forced to withdraw, right? Or could be encircled. So again, the fight is turning into, how to encircle opposing troops, right? Both sides are trying to avoid at this stage of the war sort of frontal attacks because they lead to high level of casualties, and both troops are, especially Russian ones, they had significant attrition in terms of manpower. So that's kind of like, also this tactic is probably partially born out of necessity as well. This is high-level overview of the Zaporizhia front line. As we mentioned many times, it's basically centered around the strongholds here. So now let's look at what's going on at the Kherson bridgehead. And it's super, secretive, we would say, on both sides. All we know that there's fighting still going on, and essentially around Snegorivka and here, but there is basically no information by either side. Our sort of read on this whole situation is basically both sides are unhappy with how things are going here. So they not sort of clamoring and saying, hey, look at us, look what we achieve, right? So that's why both sides kind of prefer to keep it quiet. And essentially, from basically our read on this is that Ukrainian troops did not manage to destroy this small bridgehead that Russian troops had on the western side of the Ingulets River. And then Ukrainian troops managed to establish sort of small bridgehead or whatever medium-sized bridgehead on the eastern side of the river. So essentially, it's kind of like they had some initial success, and it's all stalled at this point. So that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye bye.